You want to become a full stack developer from scratch. No degree, no experience, no fancy background, no connections in the industry, no one to guide you through the process. Just you, a laptop, an internet connection, and a goal that feels equal parts exciting and terrifying. That combination, the ambition without the roadmap, is exactly where most people start. And it sounds simple when you say it out loud. Learn to code, build some projects, get a job. How hard can it be? Here's the truth most people in this space will not tell you. Most beginners quit within the first few months. Not at the 6-month mark, not after a year of trying. Within the first few months, before they have even scratched the surface of what this career actually requires. They start with energy, spend a few weeks watching tutorials, hit their first real wall, and disappear. The goal does not disappear with them. The regret stays, but the work stops. And the reason this happens is not because coding is impossible. It is not because these people were not smart enough or not talented enough or did not want it badly enough. It is because they followed the wrong path. They listened to the wrong advice. They started in the wrong place, moved in the wrong direction, and spent their limited time and energy on things that looked like progress but were actually just noise. So, what you are about to read is not a motivational speech. It is a practical, honest, step-by-step breakdown of what actually matters when you are starting from zero, what you can safely ignore, and how to move from having no knowledge at all to being genuinely job-ready, without wasting months going in circles. Start with clarity, because without it, nothing else makes sense. A full-stack developer is someone who can build both the front end and the back end of a website or application. Those two words, front end and back end, get thrown around constantly, but a lot of beginners do not actually understand what they mean in practice. The front end is everything the user sees and interacts with: the buttons, the layout, the colors, the forms, the menus. Everything that appears on the screen when you open a website is the front end. The back end is everything that runs behind the scenes to make that interface work. The server that receives your requests, the database that stores your information, the logic that decides what happens when you click a button or submit a form. Full stack means you can build both sides. You understand how they connect, how they communicate, and how to make them work together as a complete, functioning application. If you try to learn everything at once, you will get overwhelmed and quit. That is not a prediction. That is a pattern that repeats itself constantly among beginners who approach this without a clear sequence. The solution is not to learn less. The solution is to learn in order. The first thing you build is your foundation. That means HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. There are no shortcuts here, and there is no way around this stage. Every developer who is worth hiring has a solid understanding of these three things, and every developer who seems shaky under pressure is shaky because their foundation was rushed. HTML is structure. It is the skeleton of every web page you have ever looked at. Headings, paragraphs, links, forms, images, inputs, all of it is HTML. It is not glamorous, but it is the starting point for everything that comes after. CSS is design. It is how you take that raw structure and make it look like something worth using. Layouts, colors, fonts, spacing, animations, and crucially, responsive design, meaning your page looks good on a phone just as much as it looks good on a desktop screen. Flexbox and Grid are the two layout systems you need to genuinely understand, not just copy and paste from Stack Overflow, but actually understand, because you will use them every single day. Then comes JavaScript. This is where most beginners hit their first serious wall, and it is worth talking honestly about why. JavaScript introduces logic, real logic, conditions that decide what happens if something is true or false, loops that repeat an action 100 times automatically, functions that wrap up a set of instructions and let you reuse them, events that fire when a user does something on the page. This is a different kind of thinking from HTML and CSS, and it takes time to develop. Do not rush it. Do not convince yourself you understand it because you watched a tutorial and the code made sense while someone else was typing it. Go back, write it yourself, break it, fix it, break it again. If your JavaScript foundation is weak, everything you try to build on top of it will feel unstable, because it is. Once your fundamentals are genuinely solid, you move to version control. This means learning Git and GitHub. This step is non-negotiable and non-optional. Every professional developer in the world uses version control. It is how you track changes to your code over time, how you collaborate with other developers, how you undo mistakes without losing everything, and critically, how you show your work to potential employers. Your GitHub profile is part of your resume. When a hiring manager looks at your application, they will look at your GitHub. If it is empty, that is a problem. Start using it from the beginning, not at the end when you think your code is good enough to show people. Now comes the front-end framework. A framework is a set of tools built on top of a language that makes building complex applications faster and more organized. The most popular front-end framework right now, by a significant margin, is React. Pick it. Not because it is the only good one. There are others, and some of them are excellent, but because you need to pick one and go deep. And React gives you the largest job market, the largest community, and the most learning resources of any option available. In React, you learn how components work. The idea that your interface is built from small, reusable pieces rather than one massive block of code. You learn state, which is how your application remembers information and updates the screen when that information changes. You learn props, which is how components pass information to each other. And you start building real applications, not static pages that just sit there looking pretty, but interactive tools that respond to user input and actually do things. Here is where a critical mistake happens, and it is worth naming directly. Most beginners watch tutorials. That is fine. Tutorials have value, but they watch tutorial after tutorial after tutorial and never build anything themselves. They are always in learning mode and never in building mode. That is not learning. That is passive consumption. After every concept, not after every course, not after every module, after every concept, stop and build something small with what you just learned. Even if it is ugly, even if it breaks immediately, even if it looks nothing like what you were trying to make. The act of building, failing, debugging, and fixing is where the real learning actually happens. 100 hours of tutorials without building anything is worth less than 10 hours of building something broken and figuring out why. Clearly, what a full-stack developer actually is. Front-end is everything the user sees: buttons, layouts, design, forms. Back-end is everything that runs behind the scenes: servers, databases, and the logic that makes the interface work. Full stack means building both sides and understanding how they connect. Emphasize that this clarity matters before anything else, because beginners who do not understand what they are working toward cannot make good decisions about how to get there. End by telling the viewer that the solution to the overwhelm of learning this is not learning less. It is learning in the right order. Write only the spoken words the avatar will say. HTML is structure, CSS is design, JavaScript is behavior and logic. Make clear that there are no shortcuts past this stage and no framework or tool that replaces a genuine understanding of these three things. Every developer who is shaky under pressure is shaky because this foundation was weak. The speaker should sound direct and honest, not harsh. End by telling the viewer that skipping or rushing this stage is the single most common reason beginners struggle later. Write only the spoken words the avatar will say, explaining why this is where most beginners hit their first real wall. JavaScript introduces logic, conditions, loops, functions, events. This is a different kind of thinking from HTML and CSS. It requires time to develop and cannot be rushed. The speaker should acknowledge honestly that watching a tutorial and understanding the code while someone else types it is not the same as being able to write it yourself. Tell the viewer to slow down at this stage, write the code themselves, break it, fix it, and repeat until it feels natural. Write only the spoken words the avatar will say. Every professional developer uses version control. It is how you track changes, collaborate with others, undo mistakes, and show your work to employers. The GitHub profile is part of the resume. When a hiring manager looks at an application from someone with no degree and no professional experience, They look at GitHub. If it is empty, that is a problem. The speaker should tell the viewer to start using it from day one, not after the code feels good enough to show people. Write only the spoken words the avatar will say. They are always in learning mode and never in building mode. This is passive consumption, not learning. After every concept, not after every course, after every concept, stop and build something small, even if it breaks immediately, even if it looks nothing like the goal. The act of building, failing, debugging, and fixing is where real learning happens. 100 hours of tutorials without building anything is worth less than 10 hours of building something broken and figuring out why. Write only the spoken words the avatar will say. It lets you run JavaScript on the server, which means you use the same language you already know rather than learning something entirely new. Then add Express.js, which sits on top of Node and makes it straightforward to build APIs. Explain what an API is in plain language, the bridge between what the user sees and the data stored behind the scenes. The tone should be encouraging. The viewer has already learned a lot by this point, and the back end is the next logical step, not a completely new mountain to climb. Write only the spoken words the avatar will say. Start with MongoDB because it is beginner-friendly and pairs naturally with Node and Express. Then explain CRUD, create, read, update, delete, in plain terms. These 4 operations are the backbone of almost every application that has ever been built. When you understand how to store information, retrieve it, change it, and remove it, you understand the core of what most software actually does. End by telling the viewer they now have all the pieces they need. Write only the spoken words the avatar will say. Everything into a first full-stack project. Front-end, back-end, database, all 3 working together. Keep the project simple deliberately. A login system, a blog, a task manager, something small enough to actually finish but complex enough to require all 3 layers. Emphasize that finishing a full-stack project from scratch, no tutorial holding your hand, no copied code, puts you ahead of the majority of people who claim they are learning to code. The feeling of building something complete is different from anything a tutorial can give you. Write only the spoken words the avatar will say. You do not need to learn everything. You do not need 10 languages or 50 tools. You need depth in one coherent stack. Give the specific recommendation: JavaScript, React, Node.js, Express, MongoDB, and explain that knowing these 5 things genuinely well is enough to get hired. More can come later. Right now, the goal is depth, not breadth. Knowing a little about everything is the fastest way to know nothing useful about anything. Pick a stack, go deep, and stay there until you are genuinely good. Write only the spoken words the avatar will say. With genuine consistency, job-ready level is achievable in 4 to 6 months. But there is one requirement. Stop watching tutorials and start building. The ratio should be 70% building and 30% learning. Most beginners do the exact opposite. They consume content constantly and build rarely, then wonder why after 6 months they still cannot build anything without a guide. Flip the ratio. The learning that actually sticks happens when you are building something and hit a problem you do not know how to solve. Write only the spoken words the avatar will say. Real ones that show problem solving, not tutorials you followed along with. You need 3 to 5 solid projects deployed and live online with clean code on GitHub. These projects are your proof. When someone asks why they should hire a person with no degree and no professional experience, the answer is not a list of things you know. It is a collection of things you built. Write only the spoken words the avatar will say. The speaker describes what makes a portfolio project actually worth including. It should not be a basic clone that every beginner builds. It should show that you identified a problem and built something to solve it. It should be deployed, meaning it is live on the internet, not just sitting on your computer. The code should be on GitHub and readable by someone evaluating your skill. Walk the viewer through the standard. Would a developer with 5 years of experience look at this project and understand immediately what problem it solves and how you solved it? If yes, it belongs in the portfolio. Write only the spoken words the avatar will say. The speaker prepares the viewer honestly for the job search. Getting the first job is the hardest part of this entire process. You will apply and hear nothing back. You will get interviews and not pass them. You will feel like you are doing everything right and still not get traction. Tell the viewer this is normal. It is not a sign they are not good enough. It is the gap between being someone who learned to code and being someone who gets paid to code. That gap is real. Crossing it requires patience as much as skill. Write only the spoken words the avatar will say. The speaker talks about handling rejection during the job search without letting it become a reason to quit. Every developer who has a job today went through a period of rejection before they got it. The difference between the people who made it through and the people who quit is not talent or the quality of their boot camp. It is the decision to treat rejection as data rather than as a verdict. Each rejection tells you something about what to improve, what to practice, what to prepare better for next time. Use it. Do not internalize it. Write only the spoken words the avatar will say.